In this podcast episode, Bryan Caplan discusses the topic of feminism and whether it is changing for the worse. He begins by emphasizing the importance of using the word feminism in a way that reflects actual usage and not just creating new definitions. He defines feminism as the view that our society generally treats men more fairly than women, rather than the commonly stated definition of the view that men and women should be treated equally. Caplan argues that the idea of feminism being about equality is not accurate, as public opinion data shows that almost everyone, including those who do not identify as feminists, believes that men and women should be treated equally. He also challenges the notion that women are generally treated less fairly than men in society, citing evidence that suggests otherwise. He points out that differences in earnings and career success can be explained by factors such as the number of hours worked, choice of college majors, and job preferences, rather than gender discrimination. He also addresses complaints about inequities in dating and mating success, highlighting the tendency among feminists to compare the average woman to the most successful men, which he argues is not a sensible comparison. He also discusses the overrepresentation of men at both the top and bottom of various measures, such as CEOs, homelessness, and suicide, suggesting that men are not necessarily treated more fairly than women in general. Caplan also delves into the cultural and historical roots of feminism, pointing out that there is a general human tendency to care more about female well-being and suffering. He suggests that this tendency has been codified into a philosophy, leading to the demand for consistency and the overruling of other perspectives. He also discusses the concept of gamma bias, which refers to the skewing of stories based on the sex of the person involved, with pro-female stories being sexed and pro-male stories being desexed. In terms of the trade-offs of feminism, Caplan highlights the negative attitudes of antipathy and self-pity that can be promoted by the philosophy. He argues that promoting these attitudes can be detrimental to individual women and can also lead to mistreatment of men. He also discusses the potential negative effects of discrimination laws, citing examples of decreased mentorship opportunities for women after the Me Too movement. Caplan also addresses the issue of male self-pity and antipathy, comparing it to the attitudes promoted by feminism. He acknowledges the existence of groups like incels and the Black Pill movement, noting the similarities between their ideologies and those of certain feminist groups. He emphasizes the need for tolerance of some level of unfairness in society, as complete fairness may be unattainable and could lead to detrimental consequences. Caplan also discusses how antipathy and self-pity can erode an individual's sense of control over their own life. He emphasizes the importance of taking small steps to improve one's situation and challenge negative beliefs. He suggests that changing the story one tells themselves about their circumstances can have a significant impact on their well-being. He also encourages individuals to surround themselves with people who promote growth and positivity rather than perpetuating negative attitudes. Caplan also shares his perspective on finding a soulmate, offering advice for both men and women. He emphasizes the importance of prioritizing personality over physical attractiveness and encourages women to consider dating older men who may be more mature. He also advises men to overcome their lack of confidence and take the initiative in pursuing relationships. Additionally, he stresses the need for clear communication and the importance of being receptive to signals from potential partners. He also delves into the topic of social desirability bias, explaining how people tend to say what sounds good without thinking about it, and how this bias can influence decision-making and behavior. He provides examples of how social desirability bias can impact various aspects of life, including political speeches, church attendance, and personal interactions. The discussion then shifts to the demonization of having children and the decline in fertility rates. Caplan attributes this trend to a combination of apathy, disinterest, and the influence of certain feminist ideologies. He highlights the philosophical arguments of antinatalists, such as David Benatar, who argue that it is wrong to bring children into the world without their consent due to the potential for suffering. Caplan challenges this argument, pointing out the flaws and implications of such a belief. Lastly, Kaplan explores the concept of propaganda and censorship, emphasizing that the goal of propaganda is not to control what individuals think, but rather to convince them of what others think.